So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we have Kate from Typematch here. Kate, would you like to briefly introduce your channel and the work you do?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of Typematch, and of course, our main focus is personality type and love. So we have a dating app. Well, it's also for friendship, where we match people by personality type compatibility using MBTI and the Big Five. But I also have a website with like tons of free information. Our clickable compatibility chart is the most popular page that we have, where people can go find two types, click on it, and then learn about that specific relationship, as well as a bunch of ebooks available on the website. And on my channel, I try to focus on relationships and flirting and different advice for like the 16 types, but I also talk about just a wide variety of things relating to MBTI.
Yeah, I have watched Kate's content and I find it pretty fun and also quite truthful in many instances. And just a brief introduction. So as usual, those who are new to my channel, you can also support me by taking a look at the merch store that I have. And I do have a merch store that sells basically personality themed and typology themed stuff. So if they're interested in that, the link is in the description box below. So today I want to be talking about ESTPs, and obviously Kate is an ESTP, and I think that there is like not enough understanding of the ESTP personality, at least from what I see on the online community. Like there's a lot of stereotypes about ESTPs being like jerks and bullies. And personally, I actually don't find that to be true, at least in my like actual life. Like the ESTPs I know, I don't really know a lot of ESTPs to be honest. But the few ESTPs that I know have not really bullied people. So I think it's just like people don't really know what being an ESTP is about, other than a lot of the, like cartoonish caricatures of this personality. So that's why I want to have, more representation on my channel as well, for people to really understand the functions and how it informs behavior. Um, I would like to start by asking about, so obviously in your channel, you have also covered that the ESTP and INFJ is very interesting, that we actually have the same cognitive functions. It's just the opposite order. And that really impacts the kind of image that we have and decisions that we make. So would you like to briefly talk about the ESTP functions and perhaps how you think relates to the sort of how these two personality types are related?
Okay. Well, first, I want to go back to something you said, because I really appreciate you calling out like there's not very good understanding of ESTPs, and the stereotype is that they are bullies. And personally, I haven't seen that to be true, not only like within myself, but observing other ESTPs, I've actually seen that it's quite the opposite, where I usually find them defending and standing up for the person who is getting bullied.
Yeah.
In those situations. But I think that, in studying compatibility in depth, I found that to every type, a certain type feels like a bully, even if they're
Yes.
not intending
Yeah.
to be a bully,
Very
because the
true.
will just hit you in a way that, like, to you, it's like, what an attack. And I think to certain type, like for example, the INFP, the ESTP is quite forceful and direct and like kind of punchy with their logic, and that can feel like bullying. Whereas to the ESTP, another type, it's like it feels like, oh, I'm being bullied, but to other people, it's like, oh, but they're so sweet. I'm like, no, they're cruel to me. So I think that that's a bias out there for sure. And I appreciate you addressing it. But okay, so the cognitive functions of the ESTP and INFJ. so they have the same cognitive functions, but within the reverse order within the ego. So the ESTP is SETIFENI, whereas the INFJ is NIFETISE. So the two of them, in like, for example, in socionics, this pair is called a dual, and they're said to be very compatible. And this is because um, the cognitive functions are like a lens through which we view the world and process information. So there's so much information that we are constantly experiencing both internally and externally. And your mind has to prioritize certain types of information over others. And these become your primary cognitive stack. So when somebody shares the same cognitive functions as you, even if they're in like a slightly different order, they're able to see the world and process information through a similar lens to you, which eases communication across the two.
Yeah.
So if you're ever talking to someone and you're like, exactly, like you get it. That's exactly how I would put it. You're probably sharing cognitive functions. Whereas
Yeah.
if you have opposite functions, you can agree with a person still, and get along with them, but they might say things that you're like, I agree with you, but that's not exactly how I would put it. That's not quite how I see it, but we agree, you know? So it's because the functions, there are opposite functions. We have devalued them in our mind as like not as important of information to pay attention to. So that we have like a slightly negative tinge to those perceptions and way of viewing the world. So I kind of went on a tangent there for a while, and I've kind of lost the question. So could you repeat it?
Yeah, so it's basically about how our stacking, the sort of same functions but opposite order, impact the way that we relate to each other. So I think you did touch on the fact that we do communicate. I think communication is quite easy, generally speaking, when people share similar functions. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. So within INFJ and ESTP, typically the attraction will not be immediate. They won't see each other in a room and be like, wow, like that's the person that I want to spend the evening talking to. But it's like a slow progression. Once they get to know each other, they see like, oh wow, we actually like have a lot in common. Like I really vibe with the way that they see the world. And something to note is that our inferior function is the hero function of the other. So
Mm-hmm.
I have NI inferior, where you have it as a hero function, and I have SE as my hero, whereas you have it as an inferior function. And that inferior function is also called the aspiring one, because it's like, it's, in a positive light, it's trying to be like the hero and it seeks the
Yes.
hero.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is ultimately a quality that we are seeking in others in that exchange. And one that like, we can't develop fully. So we really like when the hero can come in and assist us with that. And the two go together really well because though we have the same functions, we're never really competing with each other directly, where it's a nice complement and we can work together in a partnership well.
Yeah, and I think the reason why, a lot of people online are saying these two types don't get along, like obviously there's like a lot of mistyping, and
Mm.
also people just assume that's why the thing is like a lot of people see certain jerks online and they just mistype them as ESTP, and that's why they think like we don't get along because they assume like certain narcissistic behavior is like an ESTP person doing it, right? Like I don't know, like it happens very often that I see. So yeah, but I think in real life,
Mm.
it's the interesting thing to me. It's also beyond talking about compatibility. It's also like it helps me to understand more about myself. Like I remember I was quite mind blown. So when I heard about the ESTP having the same functions, but in the opposite order, so initially I was actually quite, I wouldn't say triggered, but I felt like quite shocked because my idea, again, it was like programmed by the stereotypes, right? Like people say they are a certain way. And I started like noticing ESTP characters in movies because I like to, watch a lot of this. Like, I think I realized that even when at a young age, I was actually drawn to ESP characters in films and also TV shows. And I realized it's because of the SE aspiring factor, like not necessarily like attracted to all of them, but it's more like, oh, they have something that I want more of in terms of my own self. So for me, it's like a representation of freedom. Because SE to me is like they have a lot more laid back energy, and it's sort of like it informs me of what I it's like the other side of me. Like it's hard to explain, but it feels like whenever I see somebody who is exhibiting, I guess, ESTP traits, a lot of times because like the values are the same. So like they have FE, for example, and they are usually, I would say, they're pretty friendly people. Actually, I don't know why that they are stereotyped to be bullies, because a lot of ESTPs actually have a friendly energy because of the FE, compared to TJs where they have like a more stern persona, at least on the outside, because they don't have FE. But yeah, I just see them as sort of like the other side of myself. And when I get very comfortable with people, I sometimes have like ESTP behaviors too. And then I would like see that and find it funny.
Yeah, I think, it's difficult because we learn about personality type in a purely theoretical manner. And then we try to take it out into the world and practice it, but it would be a lot more, of course, this is like a very censor approach to it, but like it would be a lot more useful and practical if we could learn about it in a real world environment. Like I imagine perfect scenario, we've got 16 different personality types in a room, and you can like see how that exchange goes with each type, and a true representative of that type, rather than just the purely theoretical. And then you go in with a bias, and then I think it colors your view of that person before you
Yeah.
even start interacting.
So do you see yourself like having INFJ behavior sometimes? Because
Oh yeah.
obviously you're not an INFJ, but it just, sometimes it's like when you are using your inferior or tertiary, it can sort of look like a little bit.
Yeah. I'm interested in because I don't really see type in terms of like behavior. I see it more as like a way of perceiving the world. And
Mhm.
I I do see greater development of my NI, but I would never say that I feel like an INFJ. I feel like someone who's trying to play in INFJ land for a while. Um,
Right, yeah.
you know,
That's how I
like,
feel, but like the ESTP land.
yeah, I feel like NI is sort of like my playground that I get to enter, but it's definitely not like my primary mode of being. If I try to focus on that for too long, I get really stressed.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just low capacity.
Hmm. It's interesting because sometimes when I observe when people are in the aspirational phase, using their inferior function, they sort of try to overcompensate a little bit. Like, I don't know, like I see a lot of INFJ guys do that. Maybe because, the societal norms and everything. Like, I see them sometimes sort of trying to appear more STP in certain situations, just like using more SE and sort of making like the jokes, the SE jokes, like I don't know, like the saying that they want to be um it's like a fun kind of aggression. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's like making those jokes, but you know they are not ESTPs.
Yeah. I would say that I appear INFJ in a very like stereotypical view of them sometimes because like I'm super into like spirituality and
Yeah,
the
that.
concept of like manifesting, and every day I do my manifestation journal and I meditate and I do yoga and like I've got like the sound healing bowls in my house and sage. So like if you just take a walk through, you'll be like, oh, maybe an INFJ, but like no, it's just like the aspirational uh
Mhm.
INFJ side.
Yeah, sometimes people confuse me for like being an SP. It's so funny though. Like they think I'm an ISFP because I use SE sometimes. Yeah, so it can be, it's like when you're using aspirational, people can sort of see that similarity. So like also understanding, getting to understand more about the ESTP and INFJ similarity and differences. So what would you say is like let's say a daily life for you? Like what kind of hobbies do you enjoy, and how does it relate to cognitive functions wise? Like
Okay.
besides the aspirational stuff, yeah.
Yeah. So my daily life is probably very ESTP-ish. I'm an entrepreneur, and a lot of ESTPs are drawn to entrepreneurship. And I would say that my typical day is like structured freedom. Um,
Hmm.
and I always felt like entrepreneurship was the only real option for me. I don't make a great employee. I require just yeah, too much freedom, and I feel stifled in a regular job. But a typical day is I'm gonna I just feel so ridiculous talking about this. Like I wake up when I want, and then I get ready, I play with my dog, exercise her outside, and I go to the gym. Um, and then I'll come back and I'll work and make lunch, make myself a smoothie, and just like work like little bit here, little bit there, like take breaks to go outside, play with the dog, work some more, like a lot of like active breaks throughout the
Hmm.
day. And that's like a problem with like a regular 9 to 5 job. It doesn't like facilitate for so many active breaks. And I spend time, doing my manifestation journal, meditating, a lot of like planning at the end of the day of for my business and also for my personal goals. So recently I was asked like, well, what do you like to do for fun? And that's like that's a very common question that people ask.
Yeah.
And it threw me into like a 48-hour analysis of like the word fun and what it means to me and what do I like to do for fun. And I realized that I don't have a lot of just pure fun in my life. I do things that I enjoy, but I wouldn't categorize them as fun. Um, like I enjoy working around the house and doing like DIY projects.
Hmm.
And in the moment, I'm not having fun while I'm sanding a piece of furniture. Like it's not fun, but it's very I love that moment of satisfaction with like a finished product that I can see the result of my labor. And that's something that I enjoy a lot. So it's like constant pursuit of like small goals where I can see the result. And that's kind of like how I structure my life. And I like working towards like my broader vision for my own life. Um, I like, in terms of hobbies, I do golf, traditional archery. Um, I like refinishing furniture. I like going to the gym. Um, but when people ask about like what I like to do for fun, I'm like, I'd rather you ask me like what my interests are,
Right.
because
Mhm.
like I feel like fun is like a very like just a pure pleasure seeking experience, and I don't structure my life around that. I structure it more towards like things that are meaningful to me. Um, and then there's also the question of like you wrote in the email like your passions slash hobbies, and I thought about that word for a long time, passions, and I'm like I don't like that word because um I think that like passion connotes that it's like a purely emotionally driven thing, um that's like without thought, and I'm like I don't have passions really because I'm too like calculated and cautious for like passion. And maybe that sounds bad. Um,
Maybe it's like the I don't know if it's like the FI polar thing.
yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
I
because
think
ESTPs don't like to talk about like pure passions, in terms of in that way, in the FI way anyway.
I would
But
never
yeah,
it sounds ridiculous, you know. I'm very driven to work on my business, and to make Typematch successful. And I'm super interested in personality psychology, but I would never say I'm passionate about it.
interesting. I think it's like the way that you think about the word, maybe.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, it's like as a more feeling type, I'm just like using that word randomly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
um,
People
yeah,
do throw it around a lot. I see it in other people's like pitch decks and like on their websites, like, oh, we're a passion-driven team. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, to be honest, like usually my work is like what I'm doing is really hard and I'm not enjoying it most of the time. Um,
What about
but
your interests? The one like some of the ones you mentioned,
yeah,
like golf and what is the other one?
oh, those are my hobbies, but I wouldn't consider myself interested in golf because I don't study it.
Right.
Uh,
So it's more
my
like oh, it's for
It's a
um
hobby, and I'm driven to like perform well and improve. But my interests are things that I'm like regularly seeking out and studying. I think, like of course, personality psychology, spirituality, health. I love like physical health, nutrition, working out. Um,
mhm.
Mental health, anything to do with health at all. And recently, F1, I've become obsessed with F1, which is a super SE
Yeah,
driven
it's very
interest.
SE, yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of people think that, like, oh, SE, you love sports, you love to watch sports. To be honest, before I found F1, I never liked watching sports. I found it pretty boring. Um, I like going to games and stuff because you like, it's the atmosphere and you're interacting. But I found that like high SE users don't typically like to watch a lot of sports because they want to do the sport themselves.
Exactly. They like to participate in it.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah.
it's like it differs from person to person how they use SE. A lot of SE dominant types do tend to be in sports. Like, and they tend to be, in my experience, they tend to be like in the more competitive ones, um, like a high competition type of sports,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is something that I am not, I'm not drawn to those types of sports. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
like you,
um I like to
the
be the
type of
best.
sports. Sorry. Okay, you go first.
Oh, sorry. I like to be the best, but if I see that I cannot be the best, um then I just get really relaxed and just like chill out and enjoy myself.
Hmm. Yeah.
But how about
Um,
you?
so for me, it's like my hobbies. Like when I hear, I mean, about your everyday life and stuff, I see some similarities. I would say that I do aspire to have the level of freedom that you have right now, but I'm working towards it because my ideal life, like if you're talking about like visualizing it and all that, it's like being a writer. Like I just want to be a writer, like publishing books and giving talks and like, traveling and all that. So I am working towards it still. Like, yeah, so it will take a while, I think, but that's like my how I see myself doing, and also like videos and stuff. Yeah, because I do enjoy. I think a lot of people think that J types, because they don't look at functions, they think that J types have to be super structured and all that. But I think perceiving types, because I lead with NI and I also value SE. I think perceiving types like having like things related to perception more than like the structure and stuff. But I'm okay with structure. I just think that eventually, probably, I will want something more like different for myself. Yeah, but in terms of like hobbies, definitely like your hobbies are a lot more SE involved. Like there's a lot more like hands-on and sort of going out and doing stuff. I mean, I like going out, but a lot of the things I do are like I think like quite stereotypically intuitive stuff. Like I like going to museums, art galleries, and reading. And I mean, I also like going to. I mean, I like a bit of SE, but not too much. Like some SE stuff. Like I like watching F1 as well, but
Oh, you
maybe
do?
not to the same degree as you. But I did buy tickets, so
You bought
yeah.
a ticket? What race? Oh, you going to
Actually, I
the?
didn't have to. Sorry, I didn't buy tickets because I was given to me, but I did plan to. Yeah,
You're going to the race in Singapore?
yeah.
That is so cool. I was going to ask you about it in the beginning when you told me.
I really
Like,
the
I was
one
like,
thing
"Oh, are
is
you going to the race?" But like, I was like,
I
she's like,
really like watching it because I
"Oh,
cannot participate in it. Like if I
yeah."
participate, I will crash. Like
Well, I'm just a very cautious driver. I always want like a very like fast sportsy car, but I don't drive it like it is. Um, I just enjoy the visceral feel of it. I enjoy the sound of it. Like it's a total like experience.
yeah.
Um, who's your favorite driver?
Sorry.
Do you have a favorite team or driver?
No, I just like recently. I mean, it's like a really new thing to me. So
Oh, okay.
I don't have
Oh,
like I interviewed this guy who was a professional racer, but it was for my job. And I don't know, I just like watching SE stuff from afar. Like
mm,
non-expert, It's like I like the concept of it. Like I also like fast cars and I talk about it, but like I don't even drive, so it's funny. Like I just look at it from afar and find it fun. And I like talking about it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
okay.
But
Um,
I don't have any sort of like deeper understanding, I guess. Like even
mm,
for sports too, like I like watching some of it. Like I like watching competitive sports just because I find it exciting, but I don't really know much about it.
okay. Yeah.
Just like surface level.
Yeah, yeah. With F1, I think the thing that has gripped me so much about it that is all of the technical aspects of it. Um,
Okay, the one I have no idea.
where you can learn about like the way that the car is engineered and how that affects their racing and the tires and how much gas they have and all these different things that affect it. And it's like, oh, I love the mechanics of it.
Okay, yeah,
It-
that's a different focus, but we have like the same interest but different focus
yeah,
of
of
it.
course,
Yeah.
of course. And um, I think, SE isn't just like I tell people it's not the sports function. It's just like we are drawn to sports because we want to engage with the physical world
Mhm.
and like create immediate results in the world.
Yes.
Like problem, engage, result. That's what SE wants to do.
Yeah, and because it's an aspirational function for me, I realized I like movies that have like SE situations. Um, like if two people are like competing with each other, like there was like this one movie anyway, it's an Asian movie, but it's basically like this bunch of guys like car racing, And I mean, like, I like the NI movies too. I like those like philosophical movies, but on the sort of flip side, I also like the movies where people are just doing this kind of thing.
Yeah. So again,
Yeah.
watching from afar.
Yeah, like I had like tickets to it. So previously I wanted to book it myself, but in the end I found out I didn't even have to do that, so that was great.
That's so nice. Yeah, I'm so jealous. I can't
And
wait
I
till
like hearing about it. Like I love hearing like SE stories, because the thing is I experience it vicariously because I can't do it myself. So I just like hearing people do something SE related.
Yeah. I think
Jumping out of the plane. I mean, it's very stereotypical, but I
yeah.
won't do it myself.
I want to say like, oh, I'm not a stereotypical SE user, but I have jumped out of a plane. So
Yeah, there you go. I can't do it. Maybe when I'm older and like develop my SE further, but currently not at that point yet.
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, so and then I think other than the daily life, like career you have also mentioned. So obviously another popular topic that people like to touch on is in the area of dating. And so like I would like to know, because the contrast is interesting, like how an ESTP dates versus how an INFJ typically dates. So would you say that I mean obviously now I know that you already, because I've seen some of your videos, you already have like a long-term partner, but before that, you know, like what would you say is your approach to dating? Like do you see it as more of just in the moment kind of thing, or do you see like, oh, I want somebody who is like whom I'm able to see a future with and so on? I don't know.
Yeah. So I really had a very hard time with dating. Sorry, I have like a hair in my mouth here.
Mm-hmm.
And that led me to make Typematch.
Oh.
I made Typematch for me. You know, I made it for everybody else too, but I first made it for me because I had a really hard time with dating and on the apps. Um, I I wouldn't say like I'm not bad at dating, but I would find I had a really hard time getting myself to go out with any guys because um, just like I would be on the apps like swiping and you know you match and you have like a little conversation, but if they didn't like really capture me in like the first couple minutes, I just got like, oh, who else is out here? And then I'd end up with like a ton of matches, but I went on very few dates.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just like, well, am I going to even have a good time with this person? Like, are we compatible? Um, I don't, I'm not a very social extrovert. Um, so I think that's a misconception as well. Like ESPs, um, we're driven to engage with the world and the environment, but not necessarily with people. So it's cool if we can all engage with the environment together. But I, when I was very young, I liked going out, but not so much as I got older. So it took a
Mm.
lot to get me to actually go out of the house on a date with someone. Um, so I wanted something that's like more efficient in the way I can narrow down and tell if somebody is actually going to be compatible with me before I waste my time. Because I've always sought a long-term partner. I was never really interested in like casual dating, you
Oh,
know?
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
I think it differs from different individuals, because I know there are some ESTPs who are like okay with casual, at least for like when they were at a younger, I guess like very young age, like maybe
Yeah.
in their late, I think early 20s, they were
I guess
like
in
more okay with that.
college. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just so long ago now. I'm like, I don't even know. Yeah. But I was just going to the bars and partying and having fun. So I wouldn't say I was dating, you know, but still looking for a partner. But yeah, I think that differs by individual and maybe
Mhm.
like differs between men and women as
True.
well.
Yeah, ESTP guys. I don't have a lot of experience with ESTP guys, but yeah, some of them, at least from what I hear,
Yeah.
like take a while before they decide they want to have a partner, like a long-term partner, I think. But yeah, I think people have a misconception thinking that ESP types only want like short-term stuff. So I
Yeah.
think actually it's not that true. I think that my theory, because I'm not an ESP, but my theory is that they are just being choosy. Like a lot of
Mhm.
times I see ESTP, even for ESFP men who are like the most flirtatious personalities I've
Yeah.
ever seen in my life. But even for ESFP men, like I see them like quite willing to settle down when they do like somebody. So it really for them is like they are playing the field when they're not that interested. Like they're just trying to find someone they're
Yeah.
more interested, and that's why they are like having all those like short term stuff in the middle of finding. Yeah.
When I was single, I was aggressively on the prowl, like
Okay.
constant, constantly looking, constantly flirting. Like, I was so bad. But I wasn't looking for something short term, but I loved flirting. I
Yeah,
love
I think that's where the stereotype comes in because people
yes.
assume because like the way SE users, especially like SE dominant users, like the flirting thing is like so everyday life, you know. Like I have
Yeah,
an ESFP friend and she wants marriage, but like she just has this thing where she likes flirting with people, but it doesn't like her main goal is still to find somebody to marry, but it just doesn't seem that way on the
I
surface.
I know. Yeah, I could see how they get that perception. It is
Mhm.
confusing. I didn't think about it back when I was in that
Right.
like I'm single and I'm flirting with all these guys and constantly looking, but I'm like, "No, but I want marriage."
Yeah, people probably don't
Like,
understand. Like they probably think, oh, she's looking for like a short term thing.
no, I yeah, but flirting this sounds so bad, like, I'm gonna get destroyed for this, but I don't know, back in the day, it was fun to, like, go conquering, to, like,
Yeah. Hmm.
just or go fishing, you know, see who I could get, but I never, would take it very far, not in terms like, if it wasn't going to be like, I would flirt, 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 see who I could get, but then it's like, if it wasn't going to be a long-term relationship, I would just cut it off.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah.
And
It's okay. I mean, like, I think people generally already accepted this about ESP types because I see a lot of the like comments of people
yeah.
on like the online community just asking for advice, and I'm like, you're probably one of those people that they cut off after being
Yeah,
sadly.
um, this sounds bad too, whatever. I I used to have this thing where, oh wait, I forgot it now. Oh, I wouldn't enter a relationship with someone if I thought that I would be tempted to cheat on them.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
So
That's understandable. I mean, at least you're trying to be loyal. Like that's the intention, right?
yeah, yeah. But if I'm like with someone, I'm like, I'm not that attracted to you. I'm seeing all these other people. I think I'd be tempted to cheat. We're not going to enter a relationship. But
Mhm.
I never cheated. But just like I think that line of thought could rub a lot of people the wrong way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I understand because I'm also quite, I know it sounds weird from an INFJ, but I'm actually quite commitment phobic. Like, I don't say that in terms of like, I don't flirt with everyone I see and all that because not enough SE for that. But I'm quite scared of committing because I don't want to like be stuck with like somebody
Mm,
I don't have strong feelings with, you know? So it's like the same thing, but in a NI way. Like, I'm also like I wait for a really long time
Yeah.
before deciding, because I'm like, I don't want to regret it or like do something bad after that, like
Yeah.
looking around for another person. And people think I want to like settle down quickly and everything. But it really is like, to me, it's quality is very important, like the quality of the connection. Yeah. So it can't be with like anybody.
INFJs take a very long time to evaluate a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why it's like very uneventful a lot of the time, because we are like evaluating and
Yeah. Yeah. TI child coupled with like lower FI, you have to like INFJs have to like retreat a bit and figure out like how they're feeling about a person. And you're also scanning for like red flags. And
which happens, it shows up very often.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, it's like boring though. Like I feel like, I don't know, I'm always envious of ESP types, because at least you guys have fun flirting. Even though like it ended up cutting off some people, but at least you have fun in the process. Like I don't feel like I have much fun. Like it's just like really uneventful.
I always had a
I
lot
have
of
fun
fun dating.
occasionally when I have like a random SE moment. Like I would do something weird, like I don't know, not weird, but like unexpected sometimes. But then I will like retreat back to the NI states.
Okay.
It's like
So,
spurts of SE from
but why do
nowhere.
you do you think it's not fun to date you?
No, it's fun, but like it's like uneventful. I mean, in terms of like me not wanting to, because my SE is very, very low. So like I tend to, like you said, I tend to evaluate a lot. So I don't take as many risks in dating. So that's why
Mm,
it's like uneventful, because whenever I see like, okay, no potential, then I just like discard, and then it's like end up nothing happening.
yeah.
That's the issue, like uneventful in terms of my life events.
Oh,
Like
okay.
like not enough things going on, because I tend to like evaluate more than doing.
Mm, yeah. That's funny. Oh, I feel like I'm out of focus.
Oh, but you look okay on my side.
Okay, then whatever, leave it. Um, it's my boyfriend and I, we have these like little uh NI revelations from time to time. We're like, oh, this is the secret. This is what I need to do. And one of them recently was to do less, to because like he has a problem more than I do. He like engages with so many things that it creates more problems in his life.
I think for me it's the opposite. I do too little.
No, I know. That's why I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You
Yeah.
engage too little, or he's engaging too much. And he's like, okay, the big revelation is to do less. Like,
Yeah, I agree with for your side, I guess, the STP side.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But
For me it's like too hesitant. Like I will like give up, and then like not want to date for a long time, and then after that like slowly go back to it. It's just like, to me, I don't have a lot of patience. I don't know.
so what kind of qualities are you attracted to?
It's interesting because
What are you
like
looking for?
I am attracted to SE, but I'm also attracted to NI because I have NI. So I feel like I need the NI connection as well. So that's when it gets a bit challenging, because sometimes like the SE personalities that I know don't have a lot of NI. Like they are not as in touch with NI. So I mean, you are different because you like study typology and have the spirituality thing going. But like a
Mhm.
lot of the SP types I know don't have. Some of them just don't have any NI hobbies. So it's like really difficult to connect if they don't have any NI things to talk about. And then I would be like talking about NI stuff, and they would look at me like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So that's like tough. And also like, I don't know, I'm also a shallow person, to be honest. I mean, I'm not shallow in the sense that I value like deep hobbies or whatever, but I'm shallow in the sense that I value appearance.
Yeah, I don't think that that's shallow.
Okay.
I've been thinking about that.
Like physical attraction is very important to me. I mean, it
Because,
can't be the only thing, obviously, but it's like part of the person to me. Like there
yeah,
has to be, attraction, physically speaking.
I don't think that that's shallow. I think that's important. I think that that's pragmatic because
Mhm.
you want to feel physically attracted to your partner because
Yeah.
the physical aspect matters a lot in your relationship, even if you're not a sensor. Um, and there is like what you're talking about is like being oriented towards aesthetics.
Hmm.
Um, and there can be a great depth to that, as we see with artists. So I don't think it's shallow um, or objectifying a person to say that you want to be physically attracted to them and that you notice these things. You're just human.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's like, because I value both SE and NI, and preferably the person's SE has to be stronger than mine, because I think like NI is like more passive in a sense, like in dating, in terms of dating, not in other areas. I mean, sometimes in other areas too, but more in terms of dating, like we tend to be the ones that prefer the other person making the first move. I think that's the. It doesn't even have to be SE. It can be like other extroverted functions, I guess. But it's like we don't prefer like we can make the first move, but like we just don't prefer doing that. It just doesn't feel very nice when we do it. I don't know. Sometimes I do it out because I want to have fun. Like it's just like a random spurt. But then I go back to the NI mode because I don't. That's not how I usually would do.
Um, do you give signals that you want the person to engage you?
I try, but like I don't know. I guess like my real preference is I don't have to do anything. Like I know it sounds very NI, but like my real preference, like if I imagine it, like what I mean by not doing anything means that I mean it's like a stereotype, but it's true. Like I like to be chased, so it means that like the initial chasing is like entirely by that person.
Okay.
Exist ideal situation for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he would like ask for my name, my number, like just do everything.
Yeah. Do you like if you're I don't know a place you see someone that you might be interested in, do you like try to make yourself available in some way or no, or you just like
um
you just do your own thing and like pay no attention and hope that they come up?
I don't know, that's the thing, like sometimes like in random spurts of SE I would like I might
Mhm.
even talk to them. I don't know, but that is like in a random moments where I felt like engaging SE, but usually I would not do anything.
It's fine. My method when I was single is that I want the man to engage me first. Like, I want
Yeah.
him to engage me, come to me. I want to feel desired,
Hmm.
but I'm willing to like engage him in like small ways that makes me available and more
Right.
approachable. Because like approaching a random woman is scary for a lot of men. So
Yes. Hmm.
I want to make myself inviting to him, so I'm not going to bury myself in a group of people. I'm going to like throw looks that are like, I'm interested, come hither looks. Something I
So what
used
what
to
is
do.
that look like? I never know how to do that. Like
Ah!
what is that look? I don't know.
Well, high SE users have like what's called amped eyes. So we're always like, when we're looking at something, we're like, we're tuned into it, very
Yeah, I
engaged.
think I know that look.
Yeah. So I just throw that gaze upon them. Like, I really don't have to do anything too special. I just like throw my amp dice over there and hold it for a little while and then look away. And something I used to do, if I saw a guy, um, this is so dumb. I would like pass him at the bar and I would pretend to like trip so that,
Oh my gosh.
and then like catch myself a little bit on him so that I like touched his back a little bit. And then
Oh wow.
he turned around, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. And like,
No,
now we're talking.
SE, the thing is, what I love about SE, I must say, SE people, I mean, from those that I know, have so many strategies. Like, they're always
Yeah,
talking about your strategies.
it's like super strategic. I'm like,
I
well, you're
know.
gonna come to me, but I'm going to make that
Mhm.
happen. I'm gonna make sure. I'm not just gonna leave it to chance. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, I hear so many strategies from SE types. Like, oh, like you can touch his hand in a certain way, and I'm like, it's so funny. I mean,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
again, it's
preferably,
engaging. It's us engaging with the environment in some way to
yes.
get an
Mhm.
immediate result, and so we like that.
So you
Um,
don't like pursue. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you like pursued men? Like, have you know, asked them out or done something more forward? I don't know, direct in that
yeah,
way.
yeah, I would. Yeah.
Like you would
Um,
just like ask them out.
yeah, I have gone out with, I would say, less dominant men where I had to take the reins entirely, um, and or I'm, giving him all the signals, and I can see because I've got like
The
SEFE
SE
working.
thing,
I can
right?
see
The
like all of
observation.
their interest, and I'm like, okay, I can see that you're about this, but you're not picking up on everything I'm giving. So I have to take control, and I have just engaged them in a kiss.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
So
thing. I cannot do that
yeah,
because I will
so
just like not be interested in the guy anymore if I have to do that.
well, I was just like, I can tell they're interested and they want to kiss me, but they're timid. And I'm just like, oh God, I guess I have to do everything. And so I would just do it. And then the ice is broken. And then they feel comfortable doing it for then on.
Right.
But I much prefer that a guy is not timid and he does pick up on all of these
Mhm.
signals. My boyfriend was extremely direct, super good at picking up on everything. He knew that I liked him before I knew. Um,
Wow.
and the way we started our relationship was he said, like, I don't know if you know this, but I'm going to address the elephant in the room. We have feelings for each other. And I was like, oh, you're right. And then we started dating.
Yeah, that's like I don't know, like because obviously, you know, I don't know about INFJ men. Have you ever dated an INFJ man?
I haven't dated one. Well, I've been on a first date with a couple of INFJ men. Um, I think that I enjoyed them more than they enjoyed me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Um,
That's surprising to hear.
didn't really go anywhere. But, you know, when I was dating, I was overly focused on the experience of the person that was on a date with me and making it a good time for them and
Mhm.
being an engaging conversationalist and making it fun for them, that I neglected to pick up on how I was actually feeling on the dates and if I was enjoying them rather than just enjoying the conversation that I was creating and the experience that I was creating for them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's like the SEFE thing, right? Like you go into that loop sometimes of like being the entertainer, sort of like on the dates, like
Yeah.
entertaining the other person.
Yeah. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm having a good time," because it seems like they're having a good time, so I'm having a good time, but I don't know if I actually like them. And, it would take me a really long time to figure out if I actually liked a guy.
Yeah, that's
Unless
another interesting thing about ESTPs. Because you guys have like the FI polar, which means like you don't, yeah, like the FI blind spot. You don't
yeah.
really understand how you feel about somebody very apparently. And I want to know, like, how do you actually find out? Like, do you act differently when? Because you say that you back in the days, like you flirt with a lot of people, right? Just like
Mhm.
as part of the game thing. um I mean, it is fun. I understand in my like random SE moments. But like, how do you know, like, do you act slightly differently when flirting with somebody you like does the
Well,
behavior show up differently, or is it like the same on from the outside?
I would um hmm.
Like, let's say in front of your current is it boyfriend or husband?
Boyfriend right now.
Okay,
But
boyfriend.
we're
Like,
about to
so like the
get
way
engaged.
you acted in front of him versus like somebody maybe you don't really want a long-term thing with.
Oh, well, if yeah, absolutely. But at that point, if I don't want a long-term thing with somebody, then I stop flirting with them. But it just takes a long time to figure out if I like them. So
Okay.
I'm acting the same in the period of like I know I'm attracted, but I don't know if I'm like falling in love with you or if I'm just enjoying the time that we're having in the moment.
Right. So then
Uh,
it's like it looks the same on the outside, but then like after a while you figure things out and then you choose which one to continue with, sort of.
yeah, so it FI Polar has a really hard time evaluating people,
Mm-hmm.
evaluating the depths of their emotion and um, just if somebody is being friendly and we're having a good time together, I have a really hard time telling what kind of person they actually are. And so I have to more engage TI and it's just so hard to evaluate people.
Oh
Um,
my.
but yeah, I would have to think about like, is this a person that I'm just enjoying with in the moment, or is this the type of person that I want to invest in? Like, do I respect this person? Like, would I want to like have build a life with this person? Can I trust them more? Do are they objective? Like, um, do they have a great capacity for truth? Like, do they have a lot of integrity? So I
Mm-hmm.
have to evaluate on these like more TI measures. Unless the feelings are extremely strong, then I know. But if I'm not like, oh my God, I love this person, I can't get them out of my head, I'm totally like head over heels, then it's like it's either that or I don't like you at all, or I have no idea.
Yeah, that's what I see in a lot of ESTPs. At least like the ones that are even the ones online, they also talk about this issue. Like there is a slowness in realizing. And I think even in movies, I don't know. I mean, obviously they don't go around making the movie thinking it's a ESTP character, but like I see a lot of this like
Yeah.
movie plots where the ESTP guy takes a while to like know who he likes the most. And I'm always confused because I'm like, to me, it's like really easy if I know if I like a person or not. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like for me, it's quite fast. Like I mean, I sort of know quite early on, I think.
I mean, I know if I don't like them, and
Okay.
I know if I love them, but that middle ground is really hard. Because, I could walk around and see like, in a shallow sense, I see people walking around, the way that they carry themselves, the way that they act, or things that I pick up on, and I'm like, I don't like that person, you know. But yeah, that middle ground of like, I don't love you, I don't hate you, I don't know. And and if you've ever seen Downton Abbey, Mary also often gets typed as an ENTJ, but I think that she's actually an ESTP, and she has a really hard time evaluating potential suitors as well. And she doesn't know that she has like these feelings for someone until it's like called out. And I think that is part of the stereotype of like commitment issues.
Yeah.
I think that it's not that they're afraid to commit to you. I guess they are afraid to commit to you because they just don't know how they really feel yet.
Yeah, it's just like they need time to like figure it out. There was one movie I saw. It's called One Day. I think it's like about ESTP and INFJ, um, but I mean that guy honestly is a very unhealthy ESTP in my opinion. So bad example. Like when I watched it, I was like, I do not have that patience to deal with his nonsense because like he was like taking so long to like figure out his feelings and like, oh, okay. It's just like a very stereotypical, like unhealthy ESTP. And I mean, eventually, he sort of figured out that he liked the protagonist and they got married, but they were like, I think in their 40s or late 30s. I don't know. Yeah, but it was just like a very stereotypical version of like the commitment phobic male ESTP and taking a very long time
I
and
think
engaging
ESTP,
with a lot of people. Yeah.
yeah, they need to try a lot of things to see what they like, and this is like, oh, it sucks. It really sucks to go through, and
Yeah.
to also, like, in terms of relationships and in terms of careers, um, to have to try everything to figure out what's right for you. But I think they need a clear vision of the future, what the future is going to look like with you, and
Mhm.
and they need to know that you have a stability in your life, and like emotional stability, as well as
Yeah.
stability, like your vision for your future and where you're going, to feel secure in committing, because we really hate uncertainty
In other people.
in our environment. So ESTPs and type 8 enneagrams, which a lot of ESTPs are type 8s, they really need to control their physical environments and their space.
Mhm.
And so, if life with you is going to bring a lot of like chaos, either physically or emotionally, to their environment, they're not going to be able to commit. They
Yeah,
need like,
I realized that about ESP types
yeah,
because the irony is that their life can look kind of chaotic. I mean, the younger versions, but they are
mhm,
actually looking for someone who isn't that, who
mhm.
doesn't give off that feeling, I guess. So, okay, so I guess you did answer this part. I did want to ask you what kind of qualities you look for in a partner.
Oh, I
So,
made a list.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Like open-minded for sure.
Mhm.
I look for
Yeah,
people
same
who,
here.
yeah. Um, I have trouble with like, I dated an INTJ for a long time. Like, we were in a relationship for a long time, and my biggest problem was that he would make judgments rather than asking questions. Like
Okay.
um, so I look for, I like that TI, seeking of understanding. So
Mhm.
he would go like immediately like, that's bad, that's good. And I'm like, why don't you take a more generous approach to my views? Like he's like, well, that's kind of selfish. I'm like, have you ever known me to do a selfish act? So why would you assume that I have selfish intentions here? Why wouldn't you ask me this question? Why don't you take a more generous approach in your view of a person that you supposedly love,
Yeah,
But
it's kind of hurtful. I mean, I never dated an INTJ, but I have dated like people who use TEFI, and I see that they do the snap judgment thing, and also FITE people. Like I think it's that combination.
it is, yeah.
They tend to do like snap judgments, and sometimes it's like not even. It's like we're very off. Like sometimes their judgment is really off, and I feel offended. And I'm
Oh, I
like,
get
I'm
super
not right at
offended.
all.
I get so mad if somebody makes a judgment and I'm like, well, why didn't you ask a clarifying question? Like, that's not even what I meant. And I hate when people misrepresent my words. Because I'm very precise. This is TI in choosing the words that I use and the way that I say things. It's with a lot of intention. And so if somebody's like, well, you said this, and that's not exactly what I said, I get really mad. Because I'm like, no, that's not what I said. I said this. And they're like, it's the same thing. And I'm like, no, it's not, because this word means that and that word means that. And so you're changing the entire structure. And now we're having a different argument. So I really need to be with a high TI user is what I discovered. Someone who's willing to like, just seek to understand rather than evaluate and make a judgment. And
Okay.
retains, like in my mind, that's open-mindedness. Someone who is objective in their perceptions, but that goes along with that, seeking to gather more information and to remove their personal biases from the situation. I like people who have a creative approach to life.
Okay, what does that mean?
You're
Like they pursue something creative, or
no, like they don't fall into a box. They're willing to take calculated risks
yeah.
and be like,
Actually,
oh,
I
well,
like that too.
this is the way that most people live their life, but I don't have to. I could do this instead. Like,
Yes.
yeah. So I call that living creatively. And try to do things their own way instead of the way things are supposed to be done. I like people who are very orderly and conscientious. So the big 5 factors into this as well, which is why I included it in the Typematch app. So I'm rather high in orderliness. So I need somebody who is also orderly, or I don't like, any sort of chaos in the house. Very neat. And I like people who are what I call socially aware. And this doesn't mean necessarily like involved in like social causes or something. It's like you're aware of the social environments and you adapt to it. So this is like FE. So I'm really out there seeking my own functions in another person, which worked out well with my friend. It bothers me a lot. Like I'm extremely aware of the physical space and where my body is and where everybody else's body is in orientation with everyone. That's high SE. And it bothers me when people are creating and just like a bad environment, disrupting that because they're being loud or like obnoxious in some way, or they're not aware of their physical presence and they're being like too close to someone. So just, being aware of themselves and also internally aware of themselves, like being able to recognize and admit to their mistakes and their faults and want to work to improve them.
Yeah. I think a lot of the qualities you listed are actually qualities that I look for as well.
Yeah. I mean, these are great qualities. So.
Yeah, especially like the creative living thing. Because I like it when somebody, I mean, maybe it's like just me, but I look at people's careers a lot because I feel
Mhm.
like what people choose to do for a living is a huge reflection of who they are. Because I mean, we spend a lot of time, in doing
Work.
whatever, right? Like a
Yeah.
career is a huge part of their time. So if somebody tells me like, oh, I'm doing this and it's like very far from what they usually like to do or their
Mhm.
usual interests, and it's just like, oh, it's just for the money, like I just don't find it attractive. I mean,
Mm.
I prefer if somebody has like their own sort of reason for doing what they do.
Yes. I'm a huge supporter of people following their dreams.
Yes,
It
same. Like, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's like for me it's like a really important thing. Like, I don't know why, but like I find a guy like much more attractive if he's doing something that is like aligned in some way to his dream or whatever goal he has, and it's not
Yeah.
like just for the money. It's not like just okay, just to earn this amount.
Yeah. Um, I think your soul dies a little bit every day if you have to go to work at a job that you don't like and doesn't align with you. And you
Mhm.
get further away from who you really are, and then you don't even know yourself. And I think it's like a vicious spiral. Um, you know, yeah, I really like to support people in like starting their own businesses, um, and I guess, chasing their passions. And I just I hate it when people are held back by fear and their comfort zone, like
Mhm.
in like very like big and like critical senses in their life. Um, and I can get pretty pushy with it to like push them out of their jobs because yeah, I don't know, it just pisses me off.
Yeah, I think I'm generally attracted to the same qualities, but like maybe in a different personality type. Actually, I mean, I am attracted to ISTPs too, but I just don't really know any of them.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know where, I mean, I have no idea. Like, I just never really come across any ISTP. Or maybe I did and I just didn't know enough. Or ESTPs, yeah. I mean,
Would you say
ESTPs slightly more, but sorry?
because like a lot of the things that I listed, I think are quite like TI and SE driven. I
Yeah.
named a couple things that were more FE driven, but I'm curious if you like what sort of like as a, a lead feeler, like if you look for more like something I didn't name is like I do look for somebody who's kind and compassionate, but it's not like top of my mind. I'm like more like um can we have like an intelligent discussion, like how far can you dig into this one topic with me, because like I like to take a topic and go really deep on like the meaning of the word and then like evaluating it from like an introverted thinking perspective. And
Mhm.
that to me is like deep conversation. But for other people, having a deep conversation means something completely different. It's more like digging into the emotional aspects.
I think actually what you describe, I also think it's like a combination of TI and NI because NI likes to
Mhm.
go in depth into a topic and it doesn't have to be emotional. It can be because NI can combine with any like NI can combine with TI and I can combine with TE if
Mhm.
there's So I think for me, I also like the meaningful conversation because it's pretty much like the my default state. Like I can't just date someone who only talks about food and I mean no offense, but like who really only talks about food. I have talked to people like that and it's really tough for me because like on a dating app, like if they only talk about food and movies, but it's like the not the in-depth kind of conversation. And it's like, oh, where do you like to eat? It's like um yeah, it's just really tough. Like I just can't talk
It's
anymore
so
after a while.
boring. That's so
Yeah,
boring. Yeah. Um,
like I have
I
to talk about like people's I don't know, I just like talking about like I do like talking about intellectual stuff, and I like going to museums and art galleries. So I think maybe that's like the feeling aspect, because a lot of NF types do like those places, and also sometimes SF types. Yeah, I like numbers and
Museums
everything
and
like that.
I like museums and art. It's not something I seek regularly. I would enjoy more a museum that's like, if you know, in Chicago, it's the Museum of Science and Industry, and they have like a ton of dinosaurs, and it's pretty cool. But I think that's where they have Sue, which is like the most complete T-Rex that's in the world. Um, so I like more those types of museums. But as far as art, have you ever heard of Meow Wolf?
No,
No, okay, I hadn't either before I went.
maybe like if I see it, I might remember it.
I
Sometimes
think
I don't
it's
remember names.
like the most. I think it's like the most famous interactive art museum in the world, and it's in New Mexico, and that was the most fun I ever had with art. But because the whole place is art. You're
Wow,
in a complete art environment. Like if you go to like a Van Gogh experience, it's not just looking at his paintings, it's experiencing Van Gogh.
wow.
And I think it's a more SE way of enjoying
Yeah, I
those
would
things.
like to go there for sure. Like, probably will be on my bucket list somewhere.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. The best. Yeah. I highly recommend it. I want to go back. And they're changing it all the time. So you can like re experience it like newly again. But it's
Yeah,
interacting with the environment. But yeah, I actually recently I was like, oh, am I living my life right? Do I have enough friends? Because I don't really keep a lot of friends, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should. And so I got on an app and I'm talking to girls, and it reminded me of like the dating experience where
yeah,
people are so bad at starting conversations. They ask the most boring and basic things. And I think that most people want to get to the interesting conversation, but they just don't know how. They don't know how to connect. So that's a problem that I'm trying to work to solve in the Typematch app. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
I like that idea of like everyone putting their MBTI there.
yeah. Well, you have that in my app, so it's like you automatically have like a conversation topic. You're both interested in MBTI, and you know that this person will be um, interested in the same types of things as you if they have like a similar type. But um, people just ask me like, oh, like, what do you like to do for fun? And like for me, like I'm supposed to say, and I'm like, what am I supposed to say? Like, what do women like to do for fun? Like I'm supposed to say I like to go to brunch, and like I don't freaking know what people do, and it's hard. I'm like, I want to dig into this word and your definition of fun and what you seek in life and what is meaningful to you, and not talk about like, yeah, brunch is cool. Like,
Yeah, I think it's an NI thing going on here. Like,
yeah.
cause I have a very hard time on dating apps too, because of that reason. And I don't know how people can easily talk about food for the whole day. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just, to me, it's like it's really difficult. Like, it's really
Mhm.
tough. Um, yeah, and I think like you mentioned about also like about the feeling thing. Like, I do find myself drawn to guys with feeling functions, but not necessarily FE.
Okay.
Um, like I was like I'm attracted to ESFPs quite a lot. I have
Mhm.
no idea why. It just happens. But we are not always very compatible, depending on the person. But like their TE sort of scares me sometimes.
It's
Like, yeah, but like I like FI actually. I also like FE, but like not as a leading function in guys.
Mhm.
Like I
Why?
like when they show emotional support and concern for me. I mean that sounds like a basic
Mhm.
my minimum requirements, but yeah, like when they are, because when guys are like too direct, it's like hurtful, you know. Like
Mhm.
there are some guys. I mean, because I think for like there's still social norms involved. So like thinking typed women are more inclined to develop their feeling functions, but for like thinking type men, sometimes they don't bother with the feeling functions. So it's like
Yeah.
too much, it's like it's too direct.
Yeah. I know what you mean. The environment, our functions develop definitely in conjunction with our environments in which we were raised and everything, and the expectations of like society and our culture upon us. Like as like, thinking women, we are like encouraged to develop the feeling
Yeah,
function.
like be more socially aware, like
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause otherwise people don't like you. So, um, luckily with my boyfriend, he grew up with his dad wasn't around a lot. Well, that's not lucky. So that's actually horrible. But his dad was gone a lot because he was in the military. So he was raised like with his mom and two sisters who are all feeling types. And so he had to like really work to develop his feeling function. So he's a lot more sensitive than
the
most
average, right?
dominant men. Yeah. So that was a very attractive quality to me as
Yes,
well.
same. As in like just the quality itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like when guys are sensitive, I think. When they have like a very obvious sensitive side. Like they're
Yes.
not like hiding it or repressing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest, like, I have trouble with high FI types, but I still sometimes find them very attractive. Like
Yes,
Lewis
right.
Hamilton to me, he is an ISFP.
Oh,
FO.
ISFPs are very attractive, like
Yeah.
physically speaking. Just saying,
Oh,
like, because they are so like appearance obsessed. So they
mhm.
they put in like 2 hours. I feel like they take longer than me, like getting ready all the time.
I couldn't be with one, yeah, but I really
Yeah, it's
appreciate
tough.
kind of
It's tough to
cutouts.
date. I feel like
Yeah,
even for me, it's tough to date an FI dominant type. It's
yeah.
it's a challenge. Yeah.
Mhm. Have you ever watched Indian matchmaking?
Oh no. What?
No?
How do
Oh,
they do it?
okay. It's like a stupid reality show, but I found it very interesting. And it's very interesting to watch the different types and their approach to dating and who they are attracted to. And watching the FI dominant men and what they're looking for in a mate. And it's really interesting that ISFP man on the show um, ended up marrying an ISFP woman.
Really?
And
I feel
yeah,
like that wouldn't work out in the long run though.
they got married very quickly. And it's obvious that they're still very much in their honeymoon stage. And it's kind of
Yeah.
obnoxious.
Mhm.
Um, but, well, yeah, I guess we'll see how it works out in the long run.
Yeah, I have no idea, like, cause I don't know a lot of ISFP. I mean, I know them like as acquaintances in terms of like acquaintances, like men who are acquaintances, but like I don't date a lot of them because I think it's like not very easy for me to date another like very introverted type unless they are sort of like in between in the introversion and extroversion. But yeah, I think FI Dom is relatively not that easy for me to date. Even though I do find them attractive as
Yeah.
well.
So I think that that's something that people get confused on in regard to compatibility. They're like, oh, I know, like okay, in terms of compatibility, ESTPs and ISFPs are not very compatible. Or ESTPs with INFPs, very incompatible. But what I'm talking about with compatibility is long-term relationship. I still I find myself very drawn to these FI dominants, very attracted to them, and we can have like a relationship, but a quite shallow one where we talk every now and then, like prolonged exposure. Like I couldn't live with them. And just our approach to life doesn't fit in terms of a partnership. So I think people get confused because they're like, oh, I'm so attractive to ISFPs. And I'm like, yeah, but like in terms of 10 years from now, your approaches are just too divergent, and there will be clashes there.
Yeah, I don't know if me and ESFPs would be considered compatible. I guess like in some studies, it's considered relatively compatible. But then again, I don't have enough real life experience with them to even talk about that. Yeah.
What you said about their TE child, it scares you. I want to dig into that a little bit because sometimes it can make me nervous as well. So
right, yes.
Yeah, because it's quite forceful in terms of this is right, this is a fact. And I'm like, well, but let's think about it. Let's consider for a minute. And
they don't bother to consider.
No. And it's funny because ESTPs are considered like such a dominant, forceful type, but in certain aspects, I think the ESFP, because they have that TE, they are more dominant and forceful. So I find myself treating it a little bit. With what?
Like ENTJ, they can sort of appear like an ENTJ.
Yes. Yeah, they do. They appear like that. When they're at work too. ESFP is like, I don't do well in a work environment with them. They make me nervous.
Same. Yeah. Because they appear too much like the ENTJ. And it's funny because I don't do very well at work with ENTJs for the same reason. I mean, I get along with them really well in casual day setting. But sometimes the ENTJ, when they are relaxed and talking about some nonsense, not talking about work, they can appear very ESFP like. And then that will trick me because I like ESFPs. So it will trick me and make me like them a lot more. Yeah. But I mean, I do like ENTJs as well. It's just not in a work setting. Yeah.
I love ENTJs, but I can't, I have to distance myself with them because it's an asymmetrical relationship. So when I read about this, it's like it threw a lot of things in context in my life where the ENTJ holds too much power over me, where I put ENTJs on a pedestal. I'm like, oh my God, like what an incredible person. I could learn so much from them. I could benefit so much from this relationship. Whereas they're looking at me like, oh, she's cool, but she needs my help. Like she would be lost without me. And so it's like this very unbalanced power dynamic where I defer way too much to them and I lower myself and I don't, I take away all my power in the relationship, and it's not very good in terms of work. And I've had problems like my CFO is an ENTJ, and I was deferring. And I'm like, wait, I'm the CEO. This is my company. I own the vast majority of the shares of this. Why am I not making all the decisions? And then I realized, oh my God, he is just a person like me. He has been wrong about things where I have been like, I'm not sure about that because blah, 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 blah. And I just deferred. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to take my power back. And so I have to, like, whenever I'm with an ENTJ and I'm feeling like starry eyed, I have to check myself. Like, no, this is just a person. But that's that relationship dynamic that ESTPs can have with an ENTJ. And so in a relationship, I would not want this in a romantic sense where I'm constantly having
Yeah,
to.
and it's really bad for like, I mean, especially with like the gender dynamics too. I don't know. I just feel like very unsafe if I'm the starry-eyed one. It's like
Yeah,
this is not going to work. Oh my gosh, no.
yeah. And so yeah, it is unsafe, especially like, I'm very worried about like people's intentions all the time because I have a hard time with FI polar evaluating people's
Yeah.
intentions. So I tend to think that they have bad intentions. And they might, and I'm like, I can't give them this power because then they could do this to hurt me, you know.
Yeah. So I guess for like a final question, it's about it's actually about your experiences with INFJs, but it doesn't have to be like in dating or whatever. It can just be like friendship or whatever. Like
Okay.
since dating, I think you mentioned it before.
Yeah. I've had very positive interactions always with INFJs. I have had a couple of INFJ friends, and I really admire them a lot. It does kind of feel like they're living my other life at times,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a mutual admiration that we have for each other.
Yeah, at
And
least not asymmetrical.
yeah, yeah, and I like INFJs so much because they make me feel so seen. A lot of people, you know, they make. I'm used to being made to feel like the bad guy,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think this is an FI polar problem again, where I lack this awareness, and people can see that black hole, and I could get labeled as, I don't know, like ESTPs are supposed to be bullies or something, and I'm like,
Yeah, that's like really untrue in my experience. I mean, I can talk a little bit about that later, but yeah,
but
go ahead.
I'm trying so hard to soften myself all the time because I know that I am so like direct, and my TI can be quite forceful when I'm like arguing for like a basic principle, um, or like very exacting in my words, and people don't like that. Uh, and when I'm, picking apart their words and their arguments and stuff. So I don't know, like INFJs, I think they see that I have good intentions and that I'm trying so hard to be good and do the right thing, and I just don't always know. And
Mhm.
they I had an INFJ tell me that like, "Oh, you're valuable and what you are doing is really valuable." And that made me cry so hard because like I'm always feeling like um people are angry with me and they hate what I'm doing, and I'm like, I'm just trying to create something that people like, you know. So they they make me feel very understood. Um but I have trouble with like not latching on to that because I have to be careful to not turn the INFJ into my free emotional guide and therapist,
Mhm.
and to make sure that it's a mutually beneficial relationship and I am being cognizant of all of like their feelings and their experience in the friendship. So I'm like, oh, I really like this, but I'm like, I'm scared. I have to pull back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I my experience of with ESTP is not as in I think I have one ESTP friend, because I just don't happen to be in the same environment, I guess. But most of it is limited to like acquaintances. But those are like positive interactions with acquaintances. And
Mhm.
one of them was, I always find it funny because people sort of assign like, oh, ESTP as the bully, right? Like the popular bully or whatever. That's
I
like
was
a
never
stereotype.
popular. This is bullshit. Like,
Yeah,
I
and
was
I'm like, even the ESTPs that are popular, okay, like
yeah.
stereotypically speaking, like they know a lot of people and have a lot of friends. Even those people, they were like never mean to me. Um, at least I've never seen it. I mean, the ones that were mean to me were like, I mean, like not now anymore, but like back in the days, like the ones that I sense a sense of judgment towards me were more like ESJs and sometimes ENTJ, but not like I never had that issue with seeing them bully someone or have that kind of vibes towards me. Like, and I just never encountered that. I mean, to me, like they were like my impression of ESTP is like they are very straightforward people, but they are like funny, like they are like straightforward and make a lot of jokes in class. That's the vibe that I get from them.
Yes.
And a lot of them are athletic. I guess like it plays to the stereotype, but a lot of them were like in sports CCAs. I mean, like in some of like sports clubs in school. But the impression they gave me is just like they like making people laugh, and they like to, and they are very straightforward. It's true, like they are very direct in talking about people, but it's not like in a mean-spirited way. It's more like a joke type of way. Like they just, I don't know, like banter maybe.
Oh, I love banter. I have a hypothesis about where it came from, the ESTP bully thing, and I think it may have originated with Isabel Myers. So she wrote the descriptions of the 16 personalities, but they are colored with her own individual biases. And she
Okay, right.
doesn't have a very generous view of SE as an SE polar person. So
Yeah,
her
that makes
view of
sense.
SE is just like what she could observe of like, oh, it's shallow, it's just focused on the physical, it's forceful. And it makes sense that someone with SE polar would view an SE dominant type as a bully, because to them, you know, SE dominants will get annoyed with INPs for not taking action in the moment. Where like for us, okay, you have this problem. I can see the immediate solution in front of you and you are not doing it. Why are you not just doing it? Like, just do the thing. And they're like, but their mind doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
And someone who doesn't understand type is just like, oh, is to them is like, oh, you're weak, like you're too sensitive or something. So then, okay, then there's that bullying that happens. So, I have to check myself with INTPs, because I'm like, we connect on the TI level and I'm like, okay, you understand this thing, but you're not taking action on it. And that makes me really angry with you and not respect you as a person. And so I can be a little too forceful with them sometimes, because I'm like, I like you and I want to respect you, but you don't take action. So I can't respect you. So I think that's where that dynamic comes from. But what
yeah,
people need to understand is, to every type, certain types are bullies. And for
yes,
me, I feel bullied by FI, which sounds ridiculous because everybody's like, oh, FI is so cute and like so nice. And I'm like, no, it's judgmental. And it makes these snap judgments about me and my intentions and like what I'm doing that aren't even based in any sort of reality. And
yeah,
I get labeled as cold and mean, and oh my gosh, it's awful. Like I've been made to feel like just a heartless robot. And when somebody's like, no, you have a good heart, it's like I have been bullied so much by FI that when somebody's like, you're valuable, it makes me cry. So like,
yeah,
so
and I
every
think.
type is bullying. Like,
Yeah, and I think it's like a misconception of FI being like, or any function for that matter, being like the nice function. Like people say FE is a nice function, but FE
not
can
always.
also be mean, right? So
Yeah.
it really depends on how you use the function. Like, I mean, I've had like, I mean, both FE dominant types and FI dominants, like also see me as doing something that is to them it's like against their morals because they have like their own set of what they see as the right thing to do, And so that can also be, if you see it that way, like it can also be a form of like negativity, because they are assuming you are doing something bad because it doesn't fit into, because for them it's like the FI ethics or like the FE idea of morality, right? They can sometimes they can like be unfair too when it comes to seeing what is right or wrong. Like they have a very rigid sense.
Yeah. Well, it's not objective. So it's based on their own individual feelings. So I don't view that they take a kind view of other people always, and try to understand that person's perspective.
Yeah, FI is more like self like they all their feelings start from how they feel about situations. So sometimes it's like hard for them to see that the other person might have a very different understanding of
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And then I've been shamed a lot because I I have a really hard time with this, like expressing the emotion that is expected in a given situation and environment. And so then, because I'm not able to express the right feeling in the moment, then it's like, oh, you don't care. You're cold, or you don't feel anything. Um, and it's like, well, no, that's not true. I can't, I don't feel safe to do it in front of you. Or there's just too much expectation in this environment. So they're not trying to understand how my mind works. But that's the big problem of type. You know, a lot of INTJs and ISTJs are ruthlessly bullied by higher FE types. Because
Yes.
they have this FE gap that is just like glaring to the high FE types, and it's like, what is wrong with you? Why can you not just like adapt to the social environments and be part of it and observe the norms? Like, and they're and so that hurts them a lot. Like it hurts a lot when you attack somebody's polar function, and everybody has one. So
Well, I'm attacked by the TE thing.
it makes
So
sense.
yeah, I understand totally. I mean, sometimes even by FE, because like not it's not common, but like ESFJs, when they are not so developed, they have this like idea of how people should act in a social environment, and sometimes it's like very specific, and whoever is not meeting it is like, to them it's like not behaving right, you know. So I think every function has the potential to do that to others.
I think that nobody realizes they're doing it though,
Yeah.
because to them it's so obvious, and it's their primary way of viewing the world. So it's a problem of perception, is that you don't realize that what you are perceiving is not all of reality, and somebody else is perceiving a completely different reality than you. And to
Yeah,
us,
and it's hard to
I walked
explain.
around I walked around thinking everybody is stupid for most of my life, because I'm like, I can see all these things. It's so obvious how, like, they must be perceiving the same way I am. So if they're not taking action in the way I am, it must be because they're stupid, or they're weak. And it's like, oh, that's not true. They're just, I'm not privy to the reality that they're seeing. And
Yeah,
it's
and I used to like see people who use like FI as like code as well, because they don't have the FE, you know, friendliness before I know about type. Like I was like, oh, is this INTJ, does she or he hates me? But then I find out, no, they actually like me. It's just that they don't show it in any way.
Yeah, I always thought that they were really funny. ISTJs, I always found so funny, because I would have ISTJ friends and they come up to me and talk to me with like no emotional aspect at all. And I would be all friendly to them. And I loved that back and forth, because I felt like because they don't have that, I'm being like overly friendly and it's annoying them and I'm enjoying that. But I said to one of my friends once, like, you know, he always come up to me, I'm like, hey Devin, how are you? And he's like, meh. And I'm like, I laughed at him because I'm like, you have never asked me how I am, like, ever.
Yeah, not interested in asking
Always
these kind of questions.
I always ask you how you are. The answer is always meh. Like, and then he never asked the question back. And to me, that's just like quirky. And then I
Yeah.
understood, like, oh no, it's just an FE gap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm wondering like the whole like ESTP bully thing, because like ESTPs use FE a lot, in my experience anyway. Like not as a first function, but they do use it. Like, so that doesn't scare me because they use FE.
Yeah. Well, we lean on it a lot in social environments. And we're energized by it in a higher position as well. Although it wears me out when it's in the lead position. It's like it's energizing for like an hour or so, and then I need a break.
Yeah, because it's not like it's not exactly your aspirational either. It's like
No,
there, yeah, to help
yeah,
you a little bit.
I think the child function is aptly named because it has like the attention span of a child. So how long can a child do any one given task? And that's like, and then they get tired and throw a temper tantrum. So that's kind of like how I think about having to go into FE in a prolonged sense. Though
Yeah,
it's always working in the background though. Like you cannot use any one function in isolation. So you know, they need each other to balance each other. And I think I don't remember if it's BB or who said like the your aspirational function, your inferior function is like the soul of the type. Because if they didn't have to contend with that, they would lose the brilliance of the hero function. So you can never really develop and solve the problem of the inferior function, or it would dull your whole character.
right.
So that's kind of like a beautiful way to think about that.
Yeah, and it's also like the function that you need. I feel, at least in my case, in order to really succeed in life. Like that's how I see it. Because if I don't tap into SE, I'm going to be missing out on so many opportunities, by being too passive. And it's like the kryptonite and also the biggest help and support.
Yes. So we have to do opposite things, which is like awesome for like balancing. And another reason I like to keep INFJs around is that, yeah, you have to engage more. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's engage. Like, let me help you engage, and go out and do things and take action on this. And I really need to um, slow down, take a step back, like spend more time reflecting and like trust in my higher power and in the universe, and be patient. And something I'm constantly working on is patience. I have an INFJ friend. We used to be teachers together, and now she has followed her dream and set up her own business. And she is a full-time sound healer, which I just like.
Wow, love it.
I hope I helped inspire that, because she used to come to my classroom and talk to me about like business all the time. And I'd be like, oh yeah, let's go. Let's talk about this. Like, you've got an opportunity you want to seize. And, you know, she went through a really hard time in her life where she went on sabbatical and lost her teaching job. And then like, you know, her dog died and her other job that she was going to go into fell through, and like all this stuff happened. And her story is that like what she did was she was like, she started like humming, which is like a form of like sound healing, I guess, and sometimes spend like up to 2 hours a day meditating. And she's like, not exactly the let's go solve this approach to things, but now like it all worked itself out, and she is in like the best and happiest place she's ever been in her life. But like I try to remember that story to be like, there's other approaches, because mine would be like, oh my God, everything's going wrong in my life. I need to take control. I need to hold tight to things. Whereas her approach is like, I need to let things go and hold back. So it's like fighting your natural inclination always, and having that to contend with. And that story really helps me to remember to do that. Although I definitely don't do it like full time. Of course, not full time. I would go crazy.
Yeah, and it's funny because ESTPs don't seem to be like annoyed by the NI like lack of SE. The way that let's say, some other types might be.
I want to
Like
help them.
Yeah, it doesn't come from like a place of annoyance. Yeah, that's interesting because we do have like similar issues as the INFP when we sometimes don't take action, but then you don't seem, at least ESTPs don't seem very annoyed by that in INFJs.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
Yeah, no idea why. It's like, because I remember this really funny episode of like, it's really random. Like, so basically, back in the days, I used to like skip PE lessons. It's so silly. And I just like don't go to them with my friends, and we would like sit in a cafe. I mean, we had a school cafe back then, and we would just like sit there. I don't know what we were doing. We were just like chatting, I guess. And then there was this like ESTP. I typed him as ESTP anyway. I think he's a very obvious ESTP, like PE teacher, and he found out like where we were. Just sitting there and chatting, and he wasn't like angry at us. He was just like amused. He was like, why are you guys not participating? And then he was like telling me like, you seem to be quite good, because we have like tests like I think every year, like, and we have a grade, and I did like quite okay for my PE assessments, I guess. And he's like, your score is not even bad. Like, I don't know why you're sitting here and not going to it.
That does sound
laughing. He looked really like amused rather than angry. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds very ESTP, because it's like, oh, it doesn't even make sense. Like, but I'm not going to get mad, because we like a bit of rebellion.
Right.
So
so it was like the funniest thing. Like, we were like sitting in a table, like a round table, and just like eating and chatting.
Yeah.
While we were supposed to be like at the lesson, like we were doing it with such boldness too. Like, I had a rebellious phase, totally. I had that in my teenagehood. So
I think like I would have a little bit of trouble with discipline as a teacher, and it was that I like a little bit of rebellion, and I understand the perspective, as long as the kid isn't like a total asshole, or being disrespectful to me, but you're just like chilling, but you're just being like,
we were not doing anything. We were like, I don't even know like, why we did that. I think we were just like, we wanted to like chill and do something else.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Yeah. So I think like I wouldn't have been mad either. I would just be like, you guys are silly. Like,
that was the reaction that he had.
Yeah, but I always felt like in teaching, the administration and a lot of my fellow teachers expected me to have much stricter discipline. And just the way that I managed my classroom was very different than like a lot of the ESJ
Yeah.
teachers. And it wasn't as tight. It was more like open and friendly and free flowing and high energy and like and I did like a little bit of like back and forth banter with the
Mhm.
students.
Yeah.
But I would have trouble with discipline as well because like there were a lot of rules that like I didn't see the point of. I didn't care, so I wouldn't enforce them. And then people would come in my classroom and be like, "What is going on?" You know?
Yeah. I feel like I would also have that issue because my focus is more on like the learning aspect. So I don't really care for, because in Asian schools we have a lot of attire rules.
Yeah.
And I don't really care. I mean, if I were a teacher, I wouldn't really care about that. But like, I feel like I would get into trouble if I were the teacher because people would be like, "Why are
Yeah.
your students not following these rules?"
They come in like, why is he wearing a hat? Take off that hat. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't care. Like,
Or like, why is his hair like this or something?
yeah. But I went to Catholic schools and I had uniforms my whole life, and I would be super rebellious about the uniforms, and I would alter the uniforms. Like I would sew things into them and like wear things under them and like change the buttons and stuff to like just be like, I'm still wearing it, but it's different. So I couldn't get mad about that. I would get detentions for not wearing the right shoes. And I was like, this is so dumb. Like, I'm not going to enforce that. Um, and just other little things. But also, I never wanted the class to be boring, not only for them, but for me.
Yeah. Hmm.
I didn't want to be bored. So, like, if they're doing a task and my attention span has run out, I'm like, okay, let's switch to something else. So, like,
Yeah, and it's like I sort of try to see the student's point of view as well, because when
yeah.
I was a student and I get bored with like some of the more SJ style of teaching a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just think that like generally I still think that society has a lot to progress in terms of diversity of personality.
Yeah.
Like it's really hard to explain to people who don't like know about this, but it's like a lot of the structures that you see in the workplace and also in school are not very diverse. Like they are not catering to the different personalities of
Mhm.
people.
Yeah, that's why I think I never made a very good employee, and I was like, I have to be an entrepreneur. Like, um, and now I think there are certain jobs that I could have done very
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Um, and but nobody ever really presented those to me as options because this like personality type like wasn't really a thing when I was going through high school and taking assessments and being like, you would be good at these jobs. Maybe you should consider this. Like somebody, should have told me about like tax accounting or like being a web developer or
Mm,
a real
yeah.
estate investment analyst. Like I would have enjoyed that a lot. It's very like numbers focused and very logical. And I think I would have been really good at those jobs, but they just weren't presented to me even as possibilities. And I didn't even see them. So, and I think that was maybe also a bias in terms of male versus female, like with those jobs. And
Right.
being like, maybe you would be good at journalism. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a good writer, but do you know I hate writing? Like, it doesn't fit with me and my way of functioning at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, you said that you wanted to be a writer. What kind of writer would you like to be?
Literary writing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have this like bohemian lifestyle dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like
Um, so would you write
just
fiction?
yeah, fiction.
Yeah.
I write right now I write short stories because that's like less time consuming compared to
Okay.
novels.
That's really cool. I like when you were like, "Oh, I want to write and make videos." I'm like, "I wish these were things that I enjoy doing, or like speaking. Um, I'm good at them, but I hate it. It's like, it's so tedious to me. Um, and my team always wants me to like do more of these things because it's like bringing in people and it's more content. It's great. And I'm just like, you don't know how painful like these activities are. So I really, I'm jealous that you enjoy it so much and that you're so good at it. Making up
Well,
stories was, oh my God, I'm not good at making up stories at
no,
all.
I love making up stories. I
Yeah.
I take inspiration from like a lot of things, and I love like because I have SE friends and they help me a lot because they get me out of the comfort zone, right? To like do some things with them, and so it's like it gets me to observe people and to have
Yeah.
the SE side in order to write stories because I can't just rely on NI alone. I have to actually go out and meet different kinds of people, and then I get the inspiration from there. Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah, well, you need the SE to fuel the NI. Like
yes,
NI can't function without SE. You need to
yeah,
experience in order to project. So they're working as a
exactly.
but you project more than you experience. So like a little bit of experience does a lot for you.
Hmm.
I need a lot of experience, but then I would end up writing nonfiction instead of fiction. I'm not good at making things up. I never have been. My best friend when I was little, we would like, play like horses or something. I hated dolls, so we played horses. Um,
Right.
and the horses have personalities and talk to each other. But she would complain that all of my horse characters were always the same. I wasn't good at making up characters.
That's
And
interesting. Yeah, because
yeah,
I like make up stories on the go. Like I would be like on a train and I would just start making up things.
yeah, well, you have stronger intuition,
Yeah,
uh,
it's like the intuitive
stronger
people
NE.
in their minds a lot.
Yeah,
So
I was so bad at that. And I'm still not good. So it would all be drawn from like literal people that I know. I would just write their story. But I'm writing a book, but it's not like a normal book. It's just a bunch of like graphs,
wow.
uh, graphical representations of the relationship between two concepts. And I love doing that. I'm like, okay, how do I have these two concepts in my mind. How do I think that they relate to each other? Like, okay, if I put them on an X and Y axis, I think it will go like this, or I think it would go like this. And I love doing that. And then like I just have like a paragraph explaining uh the graph, and that's the book that I'm creating.
Wow. Yeah, I think that would not be as enjoyable for me.
No, it's like a book of math. But I think I explore like some really interesting concepts, like the relationship between like an enmeshed family system and a communistic society. They really mirror each other, so you can
Yeah,
predict.
it does.
um,
Okay,
you
then
can,
then that will interest me. Okay.
yeah.
That
So
the
I'm like,
topic interests me. Okay.
yeah, they relate exactly. They work in the system works in the exact same way. So I like breaking down the system to the fundamental elements. And then like, okay, a communistic society is like a macro view, but you could look at it on a micro view of a family to understand it more easily. And like, okay, well, if you had 5 people, what would happen if this person did this? And then you can understand how the society as a whole would function. Um,
Yeah. That's like
so
the NITI evaluation
yeah, I
technique.
love doing that. I feel like my mind is at its best, and I feel at my best when I'm doing that. Lately, I've been very stressed out, and so I haven't been creating things like that. I haven't been drawing these interesting relationships between concepts, and that's when I know, because I'm not very good at knowing that I'm stressed. So I have to look at like other indicators. I'm like, oh, I haven't been doing this lately. I haven't been having these thoughts and writing these things. So that means I'm stressed.
Oh,
Um,
I see. You move from the SE observation point of view first.
yeah, it's like a health indicator. because I'm not going to like feel it out.
Yeah. That's a very interesting. Like, I feel like I can make a whole video just on being like people with bipolar. It's like
Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah. It's not. I mean, people who don't have that bipolar would experience things very differently.
Yeah. I wish more people understood it too, just like for a selfish reason of like, not feeling vilified, um, or misunderstood in my expression, and having more people take my words for exactly like I say them. And no, I don't want them to interpret my words. That makes me really angry.
Because it's like misinterpretation version.
Well, I took great care to say it exactly as I meant it, and then you took it and like ran it through another filter and spit out what you think I said or something. And I know that that's impossible for people not to do, but it really makes me mad.
Yeah, that's interesting to know. So do INFJs do that like often?
No,
Or probably not.
INFJs make me feel really understood because they ask clarifying questions, like you just did. Like,
Right.
um, but in like a work environment, I give a person like a task. I was going to say a command. It's not a command. I give, someone a task to do and I lay it out with instructions. And then instead of like asking me questions, if they're like, I'm not sure what she means. They just like make something and then it's totally wrong. I get really mad because I'm like, well, you just wasted your time, my time, our resources because you didn't just ask me like, oh, hey, did you mean this by this or this? If you have a doubt, just clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's nearing midnight for my son.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
I ran so much, but this is so fun. I love talking to
I
you.
wanted to talk longer, but it's like the time.
Oh. What's that? You cut out.
The time difference is like really annoying because I
Yeah.
want to talk longer, but like it's always like either late at night or early in the morning.
Yeah, I understand. And I need to get on with my day and actually do work. So, but this has been
Okay,
awesome.
thank you
I
so
really
much for
enjoyed this.
the video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I learned a lot.
Okay, good. I hope so. But yeah, this was really fun for me. Thank you for having me on your channel and like spotlighting me. And I hope you have a lot of fun at the Singapore race. I'm going to be like watching and thinking about you and be like, oh, what an experience you're having.
Great.
So
So
I'd love to hear
already
about it.
watching F1.
What's that? Oh, like the internet's not good. I think it's on. What's that?
Oh, I was asking like you were also watching F1 from a different place?
Oh, well, I watch on the F1 channel.
Right. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I'm watching like the physical version of it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I'll watch it on my TV. So I'll think about you when I'm
Right.
watching. Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much, Kate, for appearing on my channel once again. And if you enjoyed this video, remember to like and subscribe. And we will see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
Good night.